There are so many videos that dive into the history of Max Fleischer and how he created this masterpiece of early animation, and how he eventually inspired other DC animated projects. But like I've said many times before, I just like to talk about the experience of watching the show. My first exposure to this show was when I'd visit my cousins way back as a kid and I'd find them watching it on VHS tapes. As I've abundantly established, I'm very much an old head. The 1940s announcer voice coupled with the rotoscoped animation style always hooks me.
In the endless reaches of the universe, there once existed a planet known as Krypton.
And we can lump the score in there as well. There's something about this simplicity that just adds an element of class and purity to the cartoon. It had 17 episodes, and in terms of story, the Kryptonian origin is very quickly explained. Then after the planet blows up like a basketball, we get a very slight variation to the Superman that we know today. A passing motorist finds baby Kal-El and takes him to an orphanage where he grows up and develops his superhuman powers. Most of this is done through narration, which quickly gets you caught up to this take of the Man of Steel in his prime. As has been mentioned many times before in DC animation history videos, the original idea was for Superman to just leap tall buildings in a single bound, but the limitations of animation at the time made it much easier to just let him fly. It's always so interesting to me how production challenges result in iconic status quo changes. Ask anyone today about gaining superpowers like flying, and Superman is the first character who comes to mind. He's known as much for flying as he's known for the S on his chest. But anchoring Superman to that circus strongman motif is what makes me love this portrayal so much. It's not too dissimilar from Captain America in a lot of episodes, where he's really strong but not ridiculously so. Although he can hold up bridges, trains, and skyscrapers, he struggles at these tasks and even gets affected by tear gas, which is a much weaker Superman than the modern day version. I like it. It's very interesting visually, and it makes it easy to create obstacles for him. His solution to those obstacles also becomes less predictable as a result, because he doesn't just punch his way through everything. If you've never seen Superman wrestling a gorilla with very questionable camera positioning, this is the show for you. The episode structure is super simple, with the Monster of the Week plot, where a villain will pose a threat at the start, and Clark and Lois will get called in to cover the story. Clark will then change into Superman, either in a storage closet or that iconic phone booth, and stop the villain in 10 minutes. Whenever he gets up to go, that line that signals the change in his persona always cracks me up.
This looks like a job for Superman.
This looks like a job for Superman. The voice always goes deeper, so you know things are about to get real. And speaking of the villain, can we please bring back villains with mountain lairs and mad scientists on a hill outside the city sending threats? Maybe it's just nostalgia, but this has always been one of my favorite cartoon villain tropes. There is no background given, the motivation is super simple. Give us the money or feel our wrath.
I'm a reporter for the...
And some of these guys were just so petty. Look at these guys, what are they doing, honestly? They were just being a nuisance for no reason. I'd be so irritated if I was him. Let's bring back all these Mojo Jojo style supervillains. But they also thought of all the little things in this show. The mechanics of this car hiding its identity before a robbery is such a small detail, but it feels like a commitment to ensure as much suspension of disbelief as possible. The cinematography on this show was also really top shelf. I don't see a lot of cartoons today committing to as much visual quality. But to be fair, once you commit to the rotoscope approach of animation, it would be weird not to commit all the way. This show might also have cemented the status quo of Lois Lane getting herself into situations which she had no business getting into. She does the silliest things that we've come to think of as normal today, but this is after several other versions of the character explored it. If you skipped this less complex era of storytelling, I'd encourage you to go back and check it out. It's not bright and colorful and frantic like a lot of what is out now, but if you view it more like a classic trip down some of the foundations of modern day animation, you'll find a lot to appreciate. It's a very classy experience for me, and every time I sit down to watch it, it goes great with a cup of tea and a fancy snack. Let me know your experience with the show, or if you're willing to check it out if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.